KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're the Real Estate Rat Pack. Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Welcome to the biggest show in real estate.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning, Joe?
I'm doing fantastic, Rob. Great day to be alive. I woke up breathing.
Excellent. I woke up on the side of dirt. I always like that when that happens. And I think we've got Chris on the line.
He's here. Okay, well, Chris is out of the studio today. He's calling in from his house, and he has a birthday for his daughter, so we have to have our priorities.
Absolutely. Chris, are you there?
I would absolutely agree there.
Okay. Well, Chris, tell us your daughter's name and how old is she today?
Oh, Regina, my little princess, is 7 years old.
Oh,
Man,
wow.
She's going to be a big girl, let me tell you.
That's fabulous. Well, I think you made a good choice and had a great priority in mind to stay home and observe her birthday, and I bet she appreciates Daddy being there.
Well, I will tell you, when you have individuals like yourself as part of the Real Estate Rat Pack, it really makes it not only an enjoyable show, but as we've always said, family is just as important as the radio show for us, actually even more important.
More so.
And I really appreciate y'all taking the reins today.
Well, you all took the reins for me last week when I was in Washington, D.C., so your turnabout is fair play.
Well, be sure to tell your daughter happy birthday on behalf of the Rat Pack, and we're glad you could call in and make your segment of the show.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And hang with us because we're going to do announcements, and Joe's got a shout-out if you want to go ahead and go with that, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, something that the Rat Pack is really big on is having charity that we talk about on a pretty regular basis. And the Heights Cigar Lounge is a big friend of the Real Estate Rat Pack, and they are sponsoring a first annual Poker for Autism Night. It's going to be at Sterling McCall on Saturday, June 8th. Saturday, June 8th at Sterling McCall on the Southwest Freeway from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Poker for Autism Night.
Sounds wonderful, wonderful. And I want to take a moment here. You know, we're all getting ready to be with our families or take trips and things like that. It's Memorial Day. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's a 3-day weekend, and people are heading out of town. And I just kind of want to talk about, Memorial Day was declared May 5th in 1868 by General John Logan, the National Commander of the Grand Army, and it was first observed on the 30th of May. 1966, Lyndon B. Johnson declared that New York was the home of Memorial Day. And in 2000, there was a resolution passed that at 3 p.m. on Monday, the observance of Memorial Day is that people are to stand at a moment of silence, however you want it, to respect or pay your respects to those who have passed in battle. So I think just, our serious part of the moment is to, observe that time. I think that's a wonderful thing to do.
Absolutely. Showing my scripture geekiness, John chapter 15, verse 13 says that no greater love has one man than to give his life for another. And
there it is.
That's as powerful as it gets.
And a moment of silence is a small price to pay for the people who brought us freedom.
Absolutely.
So, and in the studio today, we have one of our brand new sponsors is Capital Title, and with us is Linda Rockwood. Good morning, Linda. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you.
And we also have Michael Board.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we were so happy that you all are here. We had a chance to chat in the beginning. And, of course, the theme of our show today is, what you don't know can hurt you. And, Chris, you're out there, and I know you...
We want to get you back to your daughter's birthday.
We want to get you back to your daughter's birthday. So, in observing what you don't know can hurt you, kind of talk about what it is that you may not have hit on last week. And, unfortunately, I missed the show last week, about the things that you'd like our listeners to know about that subject.
Well, I think it's a great subject matter. As we talked about last week, we had a lot of good guests on talking about inspections. We were also talking about home warranties. But what we didn't cover, maybe some topics that we got a lot of questions on afterwards that we received during the week that Joe and I talked about not only after the show, but also inquiries we got on Facebook and some of our websites, which is, there's still a lot of things that people have questions about. And, Rob, we're excited to have you back this week to talk about some of this as well, which is on the real estate transaction side. What are some of the myths that, if you don't know, can hurt you? How to establish credit? what are truly some of the myths going on in regards to mortgages and what is true or not true that could hurt you. Obviously, we've got Capital Title in the house today, and so Capital Title can talk a lot about what is the true role of a title company in that transaction, and more importantly is what are some of the myths. In other words, why is title insurance covered or what does it not covered? Why is it important, et cetera, et cetera. And then from a realtor perspective, you know, one of the myths that most people have is I can do it on my own. Well, guess what? There's nothing like a certified professional that can walk you through the process, especially contract negotiation, comps, et cetera. So, you know, one of the things that we want to get back to today is really speaking about a lot of the subject matters around those areas, which is from a mortgage side of things. You know, what you don't know can hurt you, and probably if I could tell anybody one thing would be the following. Don't listen to what somebody else is telling you they are getting or not getting. and I say that in the best possible way, right? Because more often individuals come and they speak to us and say, I want to get a mortgage. However, I heard my friend got this, or I heard this other company did this, or I heard there's no lending going on, or I heard I can't qualify, or I heard they got a rate of a 1%. And so one of the things I tell everybody is what you don't know can hurt you is oftentimes if you listen to the myths that individuals tell you out there, that can also hurt you because it sets a false expectation.
Yeah, you would not go to your neighbor to ask him about, you see this lump in my neck, do you think that's cancer? I mean, you wouldn't do that. Yeah. I mean, but often because people had been through the experience, they think that they have a lot of knowledge about it. Well, they went through it one time, and we may go through it thousands of times, and therein lies the difference. And I know you've done thousands of loans over the years.
Well, and you know, I know that my subject on credit, which I will definitely get into in a second, is part of, only a piece of what you as a lender are evaluating when you're looking at your customer that's sitting in front of you, and every one of those areas that you're looking at makes that person a unique loan. So it's almost irrelevant when a person says, well, you know, my neighbor or friend or whatever got this rate, that rate, or whatever. I say, well, that's great because that was their picture. That's what they looked like when they sat down to get a loan. That doesn't mean it has anything at all to do with you.
Chris, what do you think the number one myth is when they walk in your office or you talking to them on the telephone?
The number one myth I would say that we've been able to debunk over a period of time has been for the past 4 years is I heard I can't get a loan. You know, I heard loans are not being made today. I would say that myth is the number one myth that I always like to tell everybody is it's still untrue. There is plenty of mortgages going on. The real estate market is extremely strong. And don't be afraid to jump in and to evaluate where you stand on your own merit, as Joe was saying, versus listening to somebody else saying, I got denied or I didn't qualify or this bank couldn't approve me, because that was their particular situation. The number one myth is, yes, there is money. The second myth I tell everybody, or what you don't know can hurt you, is the one thing that is true is that you do have to provide documentation. But the myth is that it's no more documentation than what you've always had to provide getting a loan in a traditional mechanism. What has gone away is your no-doc loans and your stated income loans. But what has always been there and is always there today is your truly documented loans. 2 years tax returns, paychecks, W-2s, bank statements to be able to show that you have the assets to buy a property and put money down. All those still remain true. And that's probably the number one, if you don't know can hurt you, is you have to be able to provide that information, and money is available to you.
Those are what we affectionately call the liar loans, where the undocumented loans or stated income. And I've actually, having been through this cycle a few times, I know that we've already started to see some loans come back like that for doctors who have practices. You know, they typically aren't showing a lot of income because it's all in a PC, a professional corporation. And so I think as we get into this really strong market, I think you're going to start seeing some of the guidelines loosen up again, but they're going to keep some strong regulations on them.
Well, and you're right. You know, what we're really going to see is the following, and we saw this a little bit on Wednesday of this week. Rates are now starting to move a little bit. The bond market took a big hit on Wednesday with Bernanke announcing basically that the government's probably going to slow down their mortgage-backed security purchase program. So what that's going to enable the market to do is the market's going to have more of a natural fluctuation. There is going to be an upswing in rates. It's inevitable for that to happen. And what's going to create what we call a secondary market or a second market exchange for alternative loans is going to be higher interest rates. Right now, banks are not very interested in creating any other type of documentation type loans like they did in the past because the money is just not there. When you're competing against an FHA loan at 3.25 or a conventional loan at 3.75, there's not a lot of money to be made. But when the average rates are moving up back into the 5s and the 6s, then there's money to be made for the private sector to come back in and create some private exchanges of mortgages.
Which is that's a great segue into our subject, because what you don't know can hurt you. Is the fact is we've known for a while that ultimately our policies of printing a lot of money is an inflationary policy, but it's been held down artificially because they've been buying back the security-backed loans and things of that nature. I think once that happens, you will see rates go up. And I think, I was so delighted in the 80s, we were selling houses at 18%, and we get real happy to get one at 15 that was a negative amortization. We got to 10%, we were like ecstatic. So when you're starting to see 3.25, it's like it's unheard of. But I do see them going up. What do you see, Chris?
Well, you're right. One of those things, what you don't know can hurt you is if you don't know where rates stand today and you're not taking action to buy or to refinance your home, it's going to hurt you a year from now. And the reason why is what you just got through saying, Rob, is the government announced many years ago that they essentially own the mortgage market, right? FHA, VA, Freddie Mac, and Fannie Mae. They pretty much are securitizing all of our mortgages around the country. So as part of that effort to ensure affordability in interest rates and stability in that market, the government decided to buy and put a big plan to buy all the mortgage-backed securities. There comes to be a point, as Rob, you just got through saying, we can't print money to keep buying mortgage-backed securities. We have to have other aspects that we invest in as a taxpayer, as a country, as a government, et cetera. So as that market, as the government pulls out, and the only reason why they went in to buy those mortgage-backed securities is because the banks couldn't continue to hold all those notes. And Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, for all intents and purposes, were bankrupt.
And
so now that we have a stronger
actually.
market, they're stopping that, and what you're going to end up seeing is rates moving up.
Hey, Chris, I've got a question for you. Under the topic of the show, what you don't know can hurt you, a lot of these things are time-based issues for lenders. With the job market being what it has been in the United States and that type of thing, people have been out of work and have now gotten back employed and that type of thing. Tell us a little bit, what are some of the time-based issues that can hurt a consumer as far as needing to have a length of time established, those kind of things when it comes to lending?
One of the misnomers out there is that you have to have 2 years employment history in the same industry or in the same job. As long as you are a good professional and you have a history of a 2-year employment history, not necessarily with the same company, but a 2-year employment history, and can show stability and the ability to repay your loan, a lot of what we're going back to from an underwriting perspective is sensibility. Is this loan a good loan to underwrite and to securitize based upon this individual's ability to repay? And so one of the things that a lot of individuals come here with the misnomer about is, well, I just got through switching jobs. I've been working with, for an example, one big oil company for 5 years, but I just got through taking a job 2 months ago with another oil company. That does not mean you're disqualified from buying a loan.
Gotcha.
All it means is that we have to document the correct employment history. What is still an issue out there, and the individuals who are listening to us need to know, is if you are self-employed.
We're down to 30 seconds. We're down to 30 seconds, Chris.
Yeah, and hang on, because we have a couple more questions for you.
I will definitely do.
But we're being pushed up against a break here, so I think that I hear that lead-in music.
Give us a call, 800-808-5548, and we will be right back after this commercial break.
I live in a tiny closet, a lukewarm cold water.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
All right, welcome back to the Really Big Show. Glad to have you guys with us this Saturday morning, enjoying talking to Chris Kelso from Willow Bend Mortgage about his area of the expertise in real estate lending. Chris, you were wrapping up a question at the end there. Tell us what you said. You said you had a second thing that you really wanted the listeners to know before you headed out.
That is correct. You know, and one of the things we were wrapping up on is in reference to the misnomer on documentation. You know, we're getting back to employment. Now, if you are self-employed, you know, and the question was, you know, to reiterate that question, was about employment. And is it true you cannot get a loan if you have not reestablished your job history? Self-employment is probably the one that you have to be most careful about. You have to be able to show a 2-year history if you are self-employed. And the way that is shown is not only through the establishment of the company or the DBA or the LLC or the incorporation, but also through your tax returns, showing that you have had the ability and you have filed as a self-employed individual through your tax returns for the past 2 years. With that being said, as long as you can establish that, lending for individuals who are self-employed or own their own business is just as strong as individuals that are employed through a W-2.
Outstanding. Well, great information.
And I want to get one thing, to you, Joe, you were talking about, you mentioned this early on, and I wanted to reiterate this. The one thing, if you don't know, can hurt you, I definitely want to tell everybody about this is, if you don't know where your credit stands prior to getting to me or even getting to me, that's the one thing that can hurt you the most in the mortgage process, which is why you and I have not only a personal relationship but a business relationship to ensure that individuals, when they do come down and sit down with their mortgage professional or with me, they will absolutely know where they stand, and if help is needed, obviously the very first thing we do is refer them over to Improve My Credit USA to then have them look and get a free credit assessment so we can walk them through the process. And just because they might not be able to buy today doesn't mean we're not going to put them on a path to buy tomorrow or 6 months or 1 year from now.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, we really appreciated having you on the show, taking some time into...
We have another caller on the line, and I don't know who they're going to ask a question of. So,
okay.
Chris, you might want to remain on just for a moment. So,
Chris, hang on the line for just a second if you can.
Will do.
We have a call coming in, so we're not sure if it's going to be credit-related or if it's going to be mortgage-related or real estate-related or title-related. We got the whole process covered here today, folks, so doesn't matter what you want to know about the home buying process. Every aspect of it is covered here today.
One-stop shopping today.
Yes.
So, caller, are you on the line?
We have silence.
We've had silence before.
Don't know. Okay.
Well, we must have answered their question for them.
Yes.
So.
We're that good. We answered it before we knew what it was.
Oh. We're good.
We are
really good.
We are professionals. Do not try this at home.
Well, Chris, you know what? Go celebrate your daughter's birthday and wish her happy birthday from the Rat Pack.
I will definitely do. And, guys, take it easy. Have a great show today. It's always really good. I appreciate it. If y'all need anything, you know where to reach me.
Yep, we do. But don't answer the phone today. It's your day off, so just enjoy.
Sounds great. Well, y'all take it easy. Thanks for having me on board today.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good one, Chris.
And once again, we have with us today from Capital Title, we have Michael Board and Linda Rockwood. And Linda, I think there's a lot of confusion about what title insurance is. Tell us what title insurance is, and you know what? Why do I want it?
Well, title insurance, unlike house insurance or car insurance, which protect you from a future event that might happen to your property or your car, title insurance is going to protect you from historical event, something that happened prior to your ownership. It could have happened to the prior owner or 2 or 3 owners back. And to clear up those items, they could be encumbrances, it could be liens, it could be other, any kind of thing that would cost the new owner money to clear that up. If it's not cleared up, you can't resell or refinance that property.
And typically, tell me what the process is. We talk about in our contracts is about abstract of titles. And you all operate a plant or use a plant. Tell us what that is and what the process is, and look at title to see if there are any issues.
Yeah, we have a title plant that's going to take a look at. We give them the legal description of the property, and they will go to the county records, anything that's been recorded. That could be easements from utility companies, an existing mortgage. It could be judgments against a person personally. And they are going to list all of those items on our title commitment. And that title commitment tells us, the title company, what we need to do to ensure that you have clear title. Maybe we have to pay off an existing mortgage. Maybe we have to see if you are the same Tim Smith that's showing up with a judgment. Those common names cause problems. And so we then give you what we call clear title.
Okay, and why is that important?
Because if you don't have clear title when it comes time for you to sell, you're not going to be able to without probably incurring a lot of expense.
And the bottom line, the lender's not going to let you do it
Oh,
without.
and yeah, well, that's
The
true.
lender certainly wants to know
Yeah.
the title is clear and there's nothing.
Chris will
Because they
say
want to have
no.
they want to have a clear lien against
Yeah.
this title, because anything that's prior to them having a lien is a superior lien to their lien.
Correct.
And what are the number one things you see come up when you find a problem with the title?
Well, normal things that aren't really a problem are going to be an existing mortgage with the current homeowner. We can take care of that. We just pay that off at closing. But things that do come up that are kind of common are the wrong people in title. Let's say a seller purchased a home when he was single. He has since gotten married, and a lot of people don't know that new spouse does need to also be on the warranty deed if that spouse lived in the property. And I think that's probably one of the most common misnomers. It's like, I bought it before we were married, so I don't need that person when it comes time to sell. In the state of Texas, that is not true.
I understand that. And I always tell people, and when they're in the purchasing, is that don't do anything during this process. And I've had people come in and say, coming into closing, guess what? We got married last week. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Really?
That's
a
my
handy piece of
nightmare.
information.
Or, I didn't tell you about that spouse.
Congratulations, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That, and I just bought a brand new whole house full of furniture. There's this thing, and that's a credit issue. Joe can address that later on. When you're looking at title and things like this, and either one of you can answer this, and you're seeing different things on the surveys, what are the big concerns on looking at surveys?
Well, encroachments is a big thing. We don't ever want to see a house, a garage, a pool overlapping into a utility easement or anything like that, because first of all, that's a concern for the collateral that the lender has, and also that is going to be an exception. We are not going to cover any damage that comes from a utility company needing to dig up your swimming pool so
Right.
they can take care of their work. They have a right to that space. So,
Well, I had an interesting thing that had occurred with one of my agents in the Bel Air area. They had some very tall palm trees, and they looked at the, and you're already shaking your head. You already know where I'm going with this. There's aerial easements. And what happened is the city of Bel Air, or not the city of Bel Air, I guess it was the utility company came by and says, well, we're going to, these are those very expensive royal palms, which are several $1,000s a piece. We're going to have to trim those back because your trees have grown into our aerial easements. I mean, do you go over those with the buyers when they're sitting at the table, or
we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
They said, don't worry, we'll just shorten them in the middle.
Yeah.
yeah, that'll work.
That sounds like a government solution,
Yeah. A lot of times a seller will purchase a home, they have a survey, and then decide to put in their swimming pool. And the pool company has a fabulous person who can draw to scale on their existing survey this swimming pool. It will include maybe even furniture around the swimming pool. And they think that is a good legal survey. When you put in a pool, you need a new survey with a real surveyor, or it won't fly, because we really need to stand behind those surveys, and a pool company is not a surveyor. So
that's kind of brings up a question: is that we now have the ability to get in a T-47 affidavit, which is a promulgated form by the insurance industry. Basically, the seller stating, I haven't done anything to this property, the surveys as is, and we're using existing surveys. What's your opinion on using existing surveys?
We don't mind using an existing survey, and we will cover the lender policy with that. But if it is not a new survey, we're probably not going to give the survey endorsement to the new property owner.
So there are some that is not as valuable as having a brand new survey with a registered survey, of course.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
And I think I had told a little anecdotal thing a while ago. I had a situation happen. An agent called me and says, I don't know what to do. They had sold this house, and there was no easement showing, and then they were going to resell this house, and the easement showed up from the survey. But on top of that, there's been a pool put in since then because they worked off the original survey. What's the titles company position on that? It's like,
well, we're going to say it's an exception.
okay,
We are not going to cover that encroachment. So that is not something that we'll cover.
so in your estimation, the surveyor, I mean, this was a utility easement or probably some sort of pipeline easement that transversed the property. Was that something the surveyor should have caught the first time, you think?
He should have.
Yeah.
He should have caught that. Now, if that party had an owner's policy, it was a new survey, they had an owner's policy, they could go back, and they had the endorsement for it, they could possibly go back and collect on that owner's title insurance. But situation by situation.
I think Joe's down there. He looks like he's percolating.
Yeah, well, we're coming up against the bottom of the hour break, and I wanted to make sure. I know you guys have had a lot going on with your company, a lot of growth and expansion. Part of the reason why we have you guys on is, as we always point out, we have people who are experts on the show, and experts tend to grow as a business. They tend to succeed. What a novel idea. Anyway, tell us a little bit, so before we hit the break here, where folks can find you.
Linda and I and Leanne Spence and Deborah Holcomb, our offices in the Woodlands. We're currently in an office suites, but our build-out, which is being done now, and our permanent office will be at Research Forest in Six Pines, which we think is a great location.
Outstanding. Well, thank you guys for being on the show. We were glad to have you. You're going to be on again. We're up against the break. We'll be right back after this.
And we invite you to stay.
You know when that shark bites with its teeth.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And welcome back to the show. We're glad you're staying with us. We've got some great guests in the studio today. We've got title, real estate, mortgage, and credit all covered. Chris is already off, though. He's on break. We're glad you're here. As we said, we're taking your calls, 800-808-5548. So if you have questions, feel free to give us a shout. We're always glad to answer. Looks like we had a caller coming in here during the break.
Looks like we got two hanging on there.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we gave the number and someone called. How do you like that? All right. Well, let's jump to a first call. I don't see the title. Do you have a name on the screen?
I don't have a screen. Our producer over there has it on the screen.
Billy. Billy, are you there?
Yeah, I am here this morning. Good morning. How are y'all doing?
Good morning, Billy. How are you?
Having a great time.
Good. Well, listen, I have a question for you this morning about credit, but also I wanted to just first say thanks for starting off your show talking about veterans, Memorial Day weekend. As it's not National Barbecue Day, it's not National Go to the Beach Day.
Right.
You are correct, sir.
It's it's Memorial Day. We honor the fallen soldiers that have secured our freedom for our country and honor our Constitution. And thank you for that.
And thank you for your comments.
Absolutely, and that's something that's near and dear to our hearts on the show.
Well, I have a question for you here about credit.
Sure.
You were talking about what you don't know can hurt you.
Absolutely.
But there seems to be so many kind of urban myths or something about credit. How do I repair my credit? And, by the way, a lot of these companies are just, shills for the credit card companies and all this stuff. So here's my question. Who do I go to that can really help me repair my credit so I can buy a home? Where do I start?
Is this a plant, Joe?
No, it's not. Hey, appreciate the question. You are correct, because he pointed out a great thing. This is one of those what you don't know can hurt you kind of topics in my arena, in that a lot of the consumer counseling, credit counseling services that front themselves as a nonprofit, that type of thing, are actually an arm of the credit card company. So they're just it was a creative way to get the debt collected, really. That's all it boiled down to. It is a lot to know there. I would say that the first part is to definitely use the age we're living in here. Google is a wonderful thing. You can dig up a lot of dirt and a lot of information on just about anybody. I always tell everyone, our company, Improve My Credit USA, has been the consumer voted #1 company in the state for the last 3 years. But all you have to do is hop on the internet, type in my company name and reviews, and see what you find.
Yeah.
Start digging up information. We have we're all over the place on the internet. So that's one of the first things. Rob is wanting to chime in on that.
I'm just saying that, those little bandit signs you see on the roads.
Yeah.
They're really good about getting you that basically that a debt is in dispute. Joe actually, in a legal manner, knows the credit. He knows the credit laws probably better than attorneys know about, what you can do, what they can do, and how that can be handled. And most often, I think your results, I can't say it's 100%, but what's your success rate, you think?
Yeah, I have an exact statistic, and this is pretty consistent in our industry with the bigger companies that have been around a while, but about 70% of the information that's reported on your credit file is reported inaccurately. When folks come to us to say, hey, we want to have this information deleted or that type of thing, that's really not why you're hiring a professional credit restoration company. What our service is, as a profession, as an entity, is to make certain that everything that's being stated about that consumer is 100% accurate, 100% verifiable within the time frames that they're allowed to report it. And just in that zone alone, there are so many violations of consumer rights. It's not even funny. It would just blow your mind. I get all ramped up every now and then. I see some new issue of something that they violated the law, and it's just kind of a standard practice of things that they do in the industry. It's really frustrating. So I would say, to answer your question, you can get a ton of great information on the internet, but I would look up Improve My Credit USA. We have always a free credit consultation. You can give us a shout here locally at 281-914-4116. And if you can't remember that, just look us up on realestateratpack.com. All of our information's there.
Okay, so you're local, and I could get an appointment to come and sit down and talk with you and understand what's going on.
Absolutely. We have a very nice office here in Houston that you're more than welcome to come sit down with a credit counselor, and it's always a complimentary consultation, so it doesn't cost you anything to have your situation looked at. And I want to point out, too, that, it doesn't have to be about, well, I've got terrible credit. With America having gone through what it has in the last several years, 80% of America can use my services. So, I help folks in all ranges look at where they're at and give them kind of a roadmap on here's where you need to go. And a lot of times that doesn't even involve me. It's a matter of here's what you need to do, here's the best next step, etc. And I'm not involved in that process. You don't need to pay me for anything. So you can get a good guide, get a good roadmap for what you need to do.
Okay, I got my pen now. So what's that number again?
All right, 281-914-4116.
All right. Well, thank you very much. You answered my question. You have a good Memorial Day weekend.
You too, Billy. Thank you for calling.
I got to put Billy on the payroll.
Yeah.
That was a great call.
And who's our next caller? Arnold, are you there?
How y'all doing this weekend?
Great, Arnold. How are you? What's your question?
I'm doing wonderful. One of the things that baffles me a lot about credit reports is I've heard a lot about consumer reports and lender reports and why the scores vary so much. It's just so confusing. Enlighten me on that, please. It doesn't make sense a lot of times.
Joe, this is your arena.
Yeah. Well, we definitely. We were in Washington as a company. My company, Improve My Credit USA, we serve on our industry association, NACSO, or the National Association of Credit Service Organization, kind of the HAR equivalent there for Rob. And we met with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and one of the first report that they came out with after our meeting was on the differences of credit scores and how that is negatively impacting the consumer. Because you pull your credit score, you go to Chris, and first you look your credit up online. You're being proactive, just like Chris said, and you know your credit score in advance. You pull it, looks great. You go to Chris, and you get a different score. And he gets you taken care of, and you're like, now we're going to go ahead and take care of that car that we've been wanting to get, and you go pull your credit scores with the car lender, and it's an entirely different score. And it's confusing as all get out, and it actually can cause you a negative impact because when you pull it yourself, that's a consumer score. All right. Any time that you pull the credit yourself, not for the purposes of obtaining a loan, that's a consumer inquiry, and it doesn't hit you from an inquiry standpoint. The simple rule of thumb is anytime you're applying for credit for the purposes of obtaining a loan, that's when it's going to be a hard inquiry, and it'll have a negative impact on your scores. So if you pulled it yourself, you get one score, and now Chris pulls it and he gets a different score. Why is that? Well, at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. Those three numbers, all they are is a representation of risk for the lender. So depending on what type of loan you're trying to acquire, the formula that they're using to determine the risk may be different. For instance, if you pull that credit report with Chris, that's going to be looking at a mortgage history as more relevant than if you're pulling it for an auto loan where your auto payment history might be more weighted heavily. You might be one of those people who pay nothing on time but your car note. You're just like, hey, I can't get that thing repoed. I got to get to work. Macy's, them jokers shouldn't have gave me a loan in the first place. That's their fault. That's their fault. So they'll run that credit and say, well, he was late on a house note or a credit card or whatever else, but he's never had a late payment on a car loan. So that's a safer risk for a car lender. So it makes sense from the lender side, but it can be incredibly confusing on the consumer side.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So can I still rely on the consumer report at least to, I mean, what use is it for me?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
You know, here's the thing. When you pull it yourself, the score that you see there can definitely have some relevance. It definitely will give you an idea of where you're at. Just don't hold a lender to that specific number. First of all, they don't care, so you can't hold them to it anyway, but it's there to give you an idea of where you're at. The more relevant thing about that credit report that you pull is the information that's reporting there. You want to pull that to see if there's any surprise, $27 medical bill that didn't get paid somewhere by an insurance company that's now reporting as a collection, that type of thing. And a lot of the better consumer credit reports out there these days will give you, here's what's hurting you the most, here's what's helping you the most kind of information, and that can be very useful as well.
I see. So what I'm assuming from what you're telling me is that the details on that consumer report are basically the same as the ones in the lender report, even though the scores are different. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Every item that's reporting that a lender's going to pull and see, you will see when you pull that report as well. It may be scored differently, that type of thing, but those line items are going to be the same.
Well, Joe, kind of explain what the score is. I mean, it's an average of 3 reporting agencies. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, and this is another one because Chris will get these kind of questions all the time about the average of those scores. It really isn't an average. It's 3 separate companies that aren't affiliated with each other at all. They're not backed by the government, and that's another common misconception. They're not tied to the government anyway. These are 3 separate for-profit businesses. Very important to remember that part, for-profit, right? And they have their own scoring models. They have their own way of running that data through an algorithm to produce a score. And if you're looking at a home loan, they're going to take the middle score of those 3 and say, here's where you're at. Not an average, but the median, the middle of the 3.
Gotcha.
So you're totally confused now?
I am. Did we answer the questions for you?
That cleared a lot of stuff up. I really do appreciate it, guys.
Oh, I appreciate it. And you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And remember to observe the fallen veterans of all our wars on Monday.
Most definitely, sir. That's what it's all about. Appreciate you guys. You guys have an awesome show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
all right. Well, we're down to 1 minute, Rob.
we still got 15 minutes, but we're going to let our sponsors have a few words to say here and things like that. And I think this is like the radio show we did one time before this show. Is that we were all on there. We had like 5 or 6 of us, and it ended up being the Joe Orsak show. I think
there's a lot of misinformation out there about credit and how it works.
And that's the issue. You get those companies that are doing those real clever ads about my credit or whatever those URLs are, and they're inviting people to come in, and people go, well, this is great. And they go try to borrow some money or buy a house, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yes.
So we're being pushed up against a break here, so I think we should take it. So
why not?
Afford to come back next week.
Opportunity to get another cup of coffee. We'll be right back, folks. Give us a call, 800-808-5548. Hope you're enjoying the show, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
All right. Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show.
Well, you barely made it back here, Joe.
I had to zoom in with my coffee, trying not to spill it there. This is the fastest hour in radio.
Well, we have a couple of callers hanging on here.
Let's jump in real quick. Who do we have on the line,
Yolanda,
hi.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning. How are you?
Welcome.
Hi, I'm great. I have a question about investment properties.
Excellent.
I would like to know, where would someone start. I have my own home,
Okay.
and I live on an income that I was told that really wasn't that much to get into investment properties for debt-to-income ratio. But other than that, my credit is decent, but I still don't know, like, where would I start or how could I get more information about that?
Well, it may take you a little longer to ferret it out. If you've got limited access to be able to borrow money, I would look for those properties that are owner financed, and they're out there. It will probably take you a little bit longer to find them. They're going to be looking for probably 20% down investment on those homes, but you won't tie up your credit on that. Now, if you're doing a flip, there's what they call hard money lenders out there. They don't lend against you; they lend against the property, and they're typically 65 or 70% loan to value. But their interest rates are usually 12 to 14%, and they have what they call origination fees and discount points that may total, 4 or 5% going in. Those types of loans are not meant for long-term loans. Those are meant for investors who are going to be buying a home, and they have an exit strategy, usually in the first 6 to 9 months, and then they can try and flip it. Joe, you look like you're percolating over there again.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on two things. That when you're doing investment loans, credit is always going to be a big factor. Once you get beyond your homestead property and you start getting into additional properties, you have to look better and better on paper. I'm going to do two things here. One, I'm going to recommend you at least have one of our credit counselors look at where you're at. Again, it's not about having bad credit. It's about finding out where you're at and getting a roadmap to the best credit that you can get. I always have said our company isn't called Fix My Jacked Up Credit USA. It's called Improve My Credit.
the subsidiary company is.
Yeah, that's the subsidiary company. Yeah, no. So seriously, we have counselors there. They'll be happy to look over where you're at and give you some guidance. That's the first thing. So to ImproveMyCreditUSA.com, you can get a complimentary consultation. The second thing is find a great realtor, and I happen to have one in the studio.
And Yolanda, I'd be happy to answer more questions. You can reach me at 281-543-0527. That's my cell phone. And sometimes these conversations, we can't answer all your questions in a 2 or 3 minute segment. So feel free to give me a call. I'll answer your questions to the best of my knowledge.
Rob is
okay, say that number again.
281-543-0527.
Yolanda, just so you know, we're very silly here in the studio. We have a good time and all that sort of thing. But everybody that we have on the show is an expert. And Rob may toot his horn, but I usually have to put a glass of wine in him first. But but he's been the chairman of HAR. He's got 30 years of experience plus, et cetera. He is a extremely knowledgeable person and knows every realtor in Houston. So if not himself, he can pair you with somebody that will be perfect for you for identifying, because that's where you're going to have the biggest effort, especially in the market that's Houston right now. It is a hot market, so you really need an expert realtor who can isolate those properties for you that make good investment opportunities.
So,
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. We have Jermaine on line 4, it looks like. Jermaine, are you there?
Yes, sir. How are you guys doing?
What can we help you with today?
I wanted to ask a question. How long does it take for your credit to repair after falling bankrupt?
There's some good news, all right? Bankruptcy is absolutely probably the most tragic thing that your credit can experience, but here's one of those things that people don't know. 80% of your credit score comes from the last 24 months of activity. 80%. So if you do nothing other than just meet your obligations, pay your bills on time during that time period, the worst of it is over in 24 months. That's great news. All right, in that way the credit system is forgiving. So 24 months is the biggest window. There's definitely some things you can do to enhance that process in reestablishing and rebuilding credit. It's very important to utilize new credit responsibly, but it's very important to utilize it. A lot of times people take the approach or get the little gun shy, so to speak. Well, I went through this and I got in a situation, and so now I'm just going to completely avoid credit and not get involved in that at all, which it
hurts you.
Yeah, in America, there's other very big name people out there that encourage you to cut up all your credit cards and unplug from the credit system and don't utilize the credit system. And they sell books and tapes and CDs and et cetera and all that sort of thing. And I would love to argue from a biblical standpoint, because that's the case they make, that in America, to be a good steward of your finances, you have to be aware of how the credit system works and use it intelligently, as the good book says, to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves.
But do reestablish it, and if you've had a foreclosure, typically within 3 years you can buy another home. So understand that, get a small credit card with a small line. Don't borrow probably more than
never
30 to 50% of it.
Never more than 30%.
And pay it off responsibly. And once you reestablish that credit, you'll start getting things in the mail asking you to apply for credit. And within a very short period of time, you'll be able to go out there and operate like you did prior to your bankruptcy.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely. And Jermaine, I also would definitely encourage you, if you want to get a kind of a roadmap of the best practices. I'm going to jump into a little more detail about building credit, because that's something that will impact the mortgage and real estate, the whole process. And that it's also going to address your question some more in a little more detail. But definitely give our office a call so that they can go over where you're at and give you a roadmap to the best credit score in the least time frame possible.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jermaine. We got Sally on line 2. Are you there, Sally?
I am, sir. I have 4 to 6 investment properties I'd love to refinance, but there's a but in there.
I always laugh when I say there's a big but in there.
Well, I hope not. But anyway,
please, Sally, don't encourage him, okay? This is a very serious show.
Well, I don't think you're going to be able to help me, but I'm a realtor, and the last 6 years I've accumulated 18 properties, and they are all mortgaged.
Okay.
But I've got 4 to 6 right now that I would love to refi and get a cheaper interest rate, because they're on a balloon right now at a 7.5%.
Ooh. Okay.
I know you're probably going to tell me that over 10 properties, all mortgaged, that you don't have any funding.
Well, they look a lot at the seasoning of those loans, and when they look at financing, and you might consider looking at it as some sort of commercial loan on those. What I would like to do is, do we have Chris Kelso's phone number handy?
Okay.
I was just going to say, let's let the producer grab her number off air so that we can have Chris give her a call.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say your situation's catastrophic, because you've got a proven history now. How long did you say you had those homes?
6 years. Now, some of them I haven't had. I buy about 3 a year.
Well, those are very, very seasoned. You've been able to keep them leased out.
Oh yes, I lease them within weeks. I only buy one-owner properties. They're all newer properties. I don't buy anything that's over one owner. So, it just, to me, is all works. I don't put a lot of money in them, and good cash flow, and I have great reserves, great credit. My husband's great job anyway, but I'm going
to give you Chris Kelso's number. Chris is our lender on the show. He's extremely knowledgeable, been in the business forever. And if anybody can make it happen, he can. I'm going to give you his number, but we're going to also ask that our producer grab your telephone number offline so that we can get you and Chris together. Chris Kelso is with Willow Bend Mortgage. His number is 713-355-7100.
Okay, I wrote it down, but now he's going to check with me, or I'm calling.
Yeah, we're going to have him call you.
We're going to have him call you, so just hang on the line, and we'll have the producer grab your telephone number, name and number.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get your name and number also, so he can contact you, because that sounds like something that was going to take longer than a couple of minutes to be able to address for you. But again, I think it's a very doable project.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to jump in real quick. We're down to just a few minutes here, so there's a
couple of things I still want to, we have, Linda Rockwood and Michael Board here from Capital Title, and there's a couple of things I still would like to address, and one of the things that's always kind of puzzles people is standard exceptions on title policies. Tell me what those are, Linda.
Exceptions are always going to be things that are already rights that parties have. Utility companies have the right to so many feet of your property for their purposes. That's a standard exception. There are restrictive covenants, how you can use the property. There's the HOA covenants. There could be the city, the county. You're not allowed to do things on the property per their rules. Their rules are recorded. We cannot say it's okay because we have title insurance. They have certain rights, and so your insurance will not cover you violating their restrictions. So those are the normal ones that you're going to see on there.
Okay. And the other question I have is, people are going, the state fixes the price of what a title policy is. And so tell us what distinguishes your company. And if you'd like to answer this, it's fine. Why are we going to Capital Title?
Customer service. End of story. It's you stated that the title insurance rate's going to be exactly the same no matter which title insurance company you go to. So realtors, lenders will choose the title company where they get the best service. It's about relationships.
And that's what I found over the years. I've had some that have given really not so good service, usually small offices, but that we depend on you to be able to, you're kind of following the roadmap of the contract. That's how I always like to look at title companies.
Right.
You have a map to follow, and that part of your job is to make sure that we stay on that map and don't deviate off of that map.
Kevin Clark is our division president. He's done a great job in taking real care of the quality of people that he hires. I mean, you really have to surround yourself in our business with people that genuinely care about how your transaction gets taken care of.
Kevin's a sharp guy.
Yeah. So
give us y'all's number once more before we head out.
Our phone number is area code 281-210-0035.
Excellent. Well, we're wrapping up another great show, Rob, but as always, it's flown by. We want to thank you listeners for being here. We're going to be back next Saturday. It's the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show. We're out.
And you've been listening to the Real Estate Rat Pack. The question is, who's Frank, who's Sammy, who's Dean, and who's the other guy?
Chris is Frank,
I'm
he's
Dean.
And I'm Sammy.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So tune in to the really big show every Saturday at 9 a.m. right here on 100.7 The Word, KKHT.